She wakes up thinking, I could face lethal injection. Tonight, she's thinking, I'm going to be free probably in 48 hours.
It's hard to imagine what it must be like to go through that. And one of the stranger aspects of that very phenomenon was how her parents reacted. Now, remember, this courtroom was very tightly controlled, and people were not allowed to show any emotion or they were cast out of the courtroom. But her parents sat there stone-faced and then slid out of the courtroom immediately after the verdict. That was sort of surprising because they, too, presumably, were going through that same sort of emotional roller coaster where their daughter's life hung in the balance.
Their daughter's life hung in the balance, and they issued a statement after, because obviously her defense changed dramatically. She said she had been abused by her father. She said, oh, actually, no, the baby wasn't missing. The baby drowned in the pool, and my father and I disposed of the body. The family issued a statement saying, despite the baseless defense chosen by Casey Anthony, the family believes that the jury made a fair decision based on the evidence presented, the testimony presented, the scientific information presented, and the family then saying they want privacy. What happens to them going forward?
Well, this is a family that's been completely shattered, and it's hard to imagine that's a family that's going to hang together after what Casey has done to them. The vortex she has created, all of this chaos, this entire case is about her. But that's a very interesting statement you just read there. They don't declare her innocence, and that's really been their position all along, that they've sort of tipped a little bit their cards in terms of suggesting that they really don't think their daughter's fully innocent. They don't think that she intentionally did something, but her innocence was not something that they've ever proclaimed, that I've seen them recently at least proclaim. And I think we all understand that. I think everyone understands that we want to know what happened here, and the justice has not been completely served, and we're all sort of surprised.
And you say we want to know what happened here. Boy, all of us would love to hear from the jury. What swayed them in the end, and how did they reach this verdict so quickly? What's your sense of that in analyzing them? Sequestered since May, they hear this bizarre change in the defense strategy. They don't get a smoking gun. Even the prosecution concedes we don't have a smoking gun. What's it like to be on this jury?
It's got to be very difficult. And there were several members of this jury, as I've actually studied the profile of the people that were on this jury, that really felt they were not in a position to judge somebody, and particularly could not put somebody to death for a crime. They just outright felt that way. So already you had a jury that was disposed to having difficulty finding a guilty verdict. But think about how difficult it is to sit there and hear all this material and say that I have no reasonable doubt. I have reasonable doubt. I've been listening to all of this. So I could just imagine a juror sitting there listening to this might think, yes, I think she was involved, but not murder one.
And how does that play out in the mind? The jury sitting there watching her throughout this trial. They're just feet away. She does not testify, but she shows very different emotions throughout the course of the trial. Do you become sympathetic?
Absolutely, you could. As Jane Velez Mitchell said, it almost becomes like a Stockholm syndrome, where you develop a relationship at a distance with the person who is accused of the crime. And the fact is, the way the courtroom is set up, she was really facing them a lot of the day. Now, mind you, what we all observed was she behaved very differently when the jury was in the room than we saw her behaving when the jury was not around. A lot of people made note of that. But the fact still remains that the jury was there face to face with her for quite some time and may have developed some sympathy for her.